Last month, NASA's Kepler Space Telescope identified another planet that might have the right conditions for life. Kepler 438b, 470 light-years away. Kepler 438b may not have a catchy name, but like Goldilocks porridge, its conditions are just right. Neither too hot nor too cold to allow for water to flow, and with a rocky terrain. It'll be no surprise to the followers of those religions who've long believed that life, but possibly not as we know it, exists elsewhere in the galaxy. Life which has possibly exerted its influence here on planet Earth. Have beings from other planets guided our religions? Mark Bennett from the Aetherius Society. Good morning, Mark.
Good morning.
Good to see you. Now, you believe very much beings from other planets have guided our religions. Who are they? Where are they? Can we see them?
We believe that various religious leaders from history have an interplanetary origin. We believe that Jesus and Buddha came from Venus, that Sri Krishna came from Saturn, that St. Peter came from Mars, and so on. And this may seem absurd to someone who's never heard it before.
Not at all.
But if you compare it to certain ideas which are very widely accepted around the world, actually, given logical scrutiny, it makes a lot more sense. I would say that it makes much more sense to say that Jesus was an interplanetary being who came to Earth to help mankind than to say that God created a one and only Son who was also himself at a random point in history in order to come to Earth and forgive people their sins for some reason we don't really know.
OK. Let me, if I may, investigate this a little bit further. These interplanetary or planetary beings, they operate on a different plane, yeah? Explain that.
Yes, exactly. If NASA were to send a spacecraft to Venus tomorrow and astronauts were to walk about and have a look, they would not discover Venusian civilization. Venusian civilization is far more advanced than ours, both technologically and spiritually, and it exists at a higher frequency of vibration.
So, but we do not yet have the science to be able to...
Exactly, we do not yet have the science. Right. One day we will.
Yeah, and as you say, Jesus and Buddha and the master Aetherius, they're all sort of masters of infinite wisdom and so forth.
They're masters of great wisdom.
Great wisdom.
And love, yes.
And love, yeah. Working behind the scenes, presumably.
Yes, unfortunately, they are not allowed to intervene more than they already do. They care deeply about us and about the planet, and they do as much as they're allowed to do within the karmic law.
Yeah, yeah. And what happens to us when we die?
When we die, we pass to another frequency of vibration while we prepare to be reborn onto this earth. And this process continues until we've learnt all life's lessons on this earth, and then we have the opportunity to be born onto another planet, onto a higher experience cycle.
Right, OK. Sylvia, you don't believe in that, do you? But you follow the teachings of Christianity, don't you?
Yes, yes, we do. We are Christians, we are spiritists. We follow the teachings of Jesus. And we believe that our religion on Earth would be the same religion of other planets because it's universal love, tolerance, understanding, charity, respect to life, being another being, or animals, or our own planet.
Whatever planet we're on. Yeah.
Whatever planet, yes.
So, Mozart's on Jupiter?
Well, it might be. I'm not sure.
I
couldn't answer it for him.
I read that. Well, I read that in the literature. What's the connection with other planets then, and other planetary beings or entities?
Well, in other spirits, we tend to reincarnate on Earth because we have lessons to learn here. Sometimes we have beings that comes from other planets, but they reincarnate here. They don't come like gods or anything. Yeah. You know, because they are helping bring out us development of our society, our laws and stuff.
Yeah, I see.
But they reincarnate as any normal human beings. They don't bring us, although we believe in spirits of beings that have been on Earth and have progressed, and they give us messages, they give us books to teach us.
And through what, dreams or?
No, through mediumship, to dreams, to intuition.
Yeah, and would eventually, do we become light? Is that right? We're heading towards becoming light?
Eventually we are, yes, but it's our own work. is our own work of development, because we are created beings, because we believe in God, in Spiritism, but we are also creators. We are, you know, when we create our world, when we create our laws, when we build buildings, when we study and we learn, we are part of the creation. God has created us and have given us free will to do as we please, but also
beings,
the law of cause and effect.
Sorry, I'm going to other people in a second.
Yes.
These beings, would we be able, if they're in human form, would we be able to recognise them?
Well, if they come to us, they have to show themselves as human beings, because we wouldn't recognise them otherwise. But they don't have a form like we do. They're spirits.
Oh, they're spirits.
Yes,
okay.
you know, like
but
you said, a different vibration.
Transmogrify into... I see.
Yes.
Liz Weston,
Yeah.
from Christchurch, Southampton. There are more... Brian Cox was saying this. There are more stars in the universe than there are grains of sand on the Earth, you know? So this all sounds pretty feasible, doesn't it?
So I'm a scientist as well as a Christian, and so yes, I fully accept that there might be life out there might even be intelligent life out there. The Bible has absolutely nothing to say on the topic. The only mention is in Genesis, where it says God also made the stars. So all I know is that anything that is out there is created by God.
But you don't believe in reincarnation or going to... But you believe in hell, don't you? You believe in actual hell?
Yeah, absolutely, and heaven.
As a scientist,
and heaven as well.
Hell was created by a loving God. You're with that.
It's the absence of God, and it is his punishment for people who reject him.
And we are actually punished, so we don't go to higher realms, Mark.
No, I find the idea of eternal hell totally incompatible with the idea of a loving God, and a totally illogical concept. Whereas the idea that, in fact, everyone will find redemption works completely with the idea of a loving God. We believe that you could go for millions of lives, going through very difficult experiences, possibly doing terrible things, but one day everyone will change and find enlightenment.
I think when we're looking at who Jesus is, we really need to look at what he said about himself. And it's very clear in the look at the Gospels that there are only three answers to who Jesus is. Either he's mad, he said he was a son of God, and he's just deluded, or he's bad, he's trying to deceive us, and his power comes from the devil, or he is actually who he claimed to be, and he is the Son of God. None of those say that he's from Venus.
The theologist Bart Ehrman, biblical scholar, says there's a fourth option, that he was an apocalypticist Hebrew teacher who never said that he was the Son of God.
But he didn't silence the spirits who claimed that he was. So that if you look in Mark's Gospel, the spirits cry out, "You are the Son of God," and he doesn't dispute that. And actually, that's a big thing. And also, he uses the word "I am," the Hebrew Yahweh, and that's why the religious leaders want to stone him.
Some people do argue that was put in afterwards to align itself with the prophecies. But I know you know a lot. But you're three people who are just looking for Jesus, aren't you? You're all singing from the same...
Well, to us in Spiritism, Jesus is an enlightened being that reincarnated here to show us a different way of life, to show us that we can... Because basically, the basic teachings of Jesus is respect, do unto others as you would have done unto you, love God and your neighbours yourself.
So she's
universal laws.
So in your terms, she surely will enter the kingdom of heaven. She won't have the absence of God in hell, will she?
If you trust Jesus...
How can she be sent to hell?
If you accept... It's not up to me to choose. It's not up to you. It's not up to any of us to choose who does and doesn't make it.
She's a lovely woman and she wants all the best for all of us. Yeah, but you want to send her... You don't want to, but you think somebody's going to send her to hell, don't you?
No, I don't think he wants to. God doesn't want to send anyone to hell.
But he's going to have to.
If she isn't accepting her personal sin and her personal rejection of God as creator of the universe and the one who's sovereign in her life, and therefore, you know, the one to whom she should give all the glory to, and she doesn't accept that she's rejected him and doesn't accept his means of salvation in Jesus. So if he says,
give the glory to me, or you've had it?
No, accept my son, because you cannot live up to God's standards. None of us do.
But who is... You said God doesn't want to send people to hell.
No, he's a loving God.
Who is making God send people to hell, then?
His justice. He's a good and just God, and he cannot ignore evil. He can't do it. He's a just and loving God, and you wouldn't want to have a God in charge of the whole universe who wasn't just. We all have a deep sense of justice.
How does eternal damnation equate to what you might have done wrong in one life? Or I believe in your system of belief not even what you've done wrong, but the fact that you haven't accepted Jesus into your life?
Because you don't understand how important God is, and I think a lot of the time we make God quite small.
No, I do understand how important God is.
Okay. In that case, you understand that actually rejecting his rule is an absolute abhorrence, and that's why
He created
it is
this rule.
justified.
So you're saying he doesn't want to send people
Kevin
to
Fiery. Kevin, let me come to Kevin first. Psychologists, as we were Hampshire skeptics. Mark and Sylvia's intergalactic interventions or connections, is that a step too far for you?
If I'm listening to stories, none of it's a step too far. I'm currently reading Philip Dick's great science fiction novel, Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep? It's a novel, it's fiction, it's science fiction, and I enjoy science fiction. And so listening to this debate is like listening to three science fiction writers talking about their different works of fiction.
We had L. Ron Hubbard with us. We had four.
So thank you for introducing. I was loath to introduce him. I mean, here you get a third-rate science fiction writer who fails as a science fiction writer, but says, "Hey, guess what? I can monetize this and turn it into an income stream for myself. Let's call it a religion. Let's call it Scientology, and we build a complete science fiction world out of it."
Liz is with you on that. Liz is nodding. She agrees that that's...
Now, this particular version of science fiction is laughed out of any rational society, but some people still believe in it because part of the problem we face and part of the problem we're hearing about today is people struggling to make meaning out of their existence, struggling to make meaning out of the world because they believe there is some meaning to be made.
Not harming anyone, are they?
And that sometimes they are harming. And don't start me on that. But sometimes sometimes they're
I'll
harming.
start you on it.
Okay, start me. Let me take the aetherists. Lovely crackpot science fiction people living on Venus, vibrations, quantum, all the rest of it. Harmless science fiction, except you go to their website and they say, "We pray for the sick." And they say, every condition can be cured by prayer, but not every person can be cured. That's what they say in their
very
website.
much taken out of context. First of all, we always tell people to seek medical help.
Definitely you do,
And
yeah.
I always seek medical help myself whenever I have an illness. We also believe in the power of prayer as a way of channeling spiritual energy, which we believe is a real force.
All conditions, it says on your website, all conditions. Cancer?
Cancer could be helped by prayer. Yeah. That does not mean, though, that you should not go and seek medical help.
It says
So
all
what harm,
conditions.
even if we're wrong, what harm are we doing?
You're doing terrible harm.
How?
All conditions can be cured
How?
by prayer,
But not all
people
people.
can be.
Says that very
It's actually
clearly.
it's actually against the law in Britain to say that your alternative approach, your complementary approach, can cure cancer. We have legislation to say that is illegal to say that. What you do is you give vulnerable people false hope.
No, we don't.
You give vulnerable.
We do not give anyone false
mainstream
hope.
Christians believe in healing. Jesus brought people back from the dead,
Yeah,
didn't he?
He did.
Yeah.
That was a
do you
very
believe?
specific-
Do you believe that he turned water into wine and all that?
Yeah,
And do you
absolutely.
believe he walked on water?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because in that
But you
very
don't
specific,
believe
that
he's
very
on-
specific
he's from
time.
Venus?
No,
No,
I don't.
no.
Because he didn't claim or at any point any claims that he was from Venus. So if he had
Excuse
done,
me,
it'd be
may I
different
just
matter, but he
interject? It
didn't.
does actually say in the Bible that I am the son of David and the bright and morning star, which is Venus.
There we are.
That's very much taken out of context.
What else does it say in the Bible about UFOs and?
It says a great deal. The Bible is a fascinating compendium of sightings of extraterrestrial spacecraft. Probably the most famous is the Star of Bethlehem. Stars do not lead wise men to stables and hover over them.
They're not that specific, are they?
No, it's totally nonsensical. Whereas the idea that an extraterrestrial spacecraft could do that is perfectly possible. Comets don't hover over stables.
But isn't that just an exaggerated epical story? I mean,
Yeah. So it was you believe it was a UFO at the stable?
We believe it was a spacecraft.
Right. Join us, Alex, and then audience, if anyone wants to.
If anyone's seen the book, and please do do, if you haven't seen the Book of Mormon, there's this wonderful bit at the beginning of that musical where there's this massively convoluted explanation for their religion, and at every step where something provable might happen, they accidentally lose it, misplace, or whatever else. And sadly, however benign and gentle and kind...
Well, their follow-up musical's not going to be the Book of Muhammad, let's face it.
and so I think...
There's already one making fun out of some religions and not others.
I think as an atheist, you always get fed up with the lack of science or proof, and it becomes, I know that's the test of faith. And the second thing, I think, the point you make, and what I'd like to say to a more fundamental level, is the erosion in the belief of science. You know, and that's what I dislike most, is that all of this erodes our belief. And in the modern age, what we've lost, when I brought up, was the scientists were the hero of the world. They were going to change, everything was for good. And now we're terrified of GM crops, we're terrified of everything, we're terrified of ourselves.
Creationism, a step back in time.
Something?
Yeah, Sylvia. Sylvia.
Because, you know, Spiritism is a science, as a philosophy and a religion. We follow all the teachings of science, you know, Taoing and everything.
Yeah.
We are not against it. The only thing is that the Spiritist science studies the word of the spirits, which we're all going to go there anyway, because we're going to lose this physical body.
So do you think
one
our
day.
communications with the spirits, or the spirits' communications with us, is
yes.
a form of, well, it's scientific, but we've just not yet discovered it?
Yes, I think we, you know, as we progress, as we develop, we're going to have a contact. Nowadays we have to meet, but we have dreams, we have intuition. Because for us, God is an intelligence. It's not a being that's sitting there telling us, you know, horrible things that we're going to be condemned. We don't accept the idea of hell. There are places where we go because our own conscience, because we have to face the mirror of our conscience when we lose a physical body. And the laws of God is written in our own conscience. The kingdom of God lives within us. So, you know, it's not outside of us.
We have some great theological thinkers, obviously, but we do have the Bishop of Southampton, the Right Reverend Jonathan Frost. Bishop Jonathan, would you like to make a contribution to this theological debate?
Yes, I think all the major...
Hallelujah.
All the major traditions have a space for silence. And I think this is illustrated why silence has such an important place in the human spirit and in developing ourselves as human beings before others.
Not between 10 and 11 on a Sunday morning.
Exactly. And because there's something about reticence we need. I mean, I've been wondering what the rest of the folk here today make of the connection of this to our previous debates, which seem to be ever so down to earth. And my reading of Christianity is that it's a down-to-earth, lived practice that makes a difference to real people's lives. I mean, I'm less concerned...
It's made a difference to Mark's life. It's made a difference to Sylvia's life. Yeah.
I respect that, but I think there's a place for... certainly a place for respect. But I think for me, a little more reticence about the mystery of life, a little more openness to debate with science. I welcome science and the insights
the mystery of life is
yes.
something that Mark has looked into deeply. But you don't believe these beings exist on other planes, or Jesus came from Venus. You don't believe that?
I
you
don't.
do surprise me. Mark, do you want to come back in on this? Because it's interesting what the bishop says about belief systems there.
Yeah, well, I would agree that we should respect other faiths, of course, and that's one key point about our belief system, actually, is it's extremely unifying, because we believe, you know, not just that Jesus was from another planet, but that Krishna, Buddha, Confucius, Lao Tzu were all from other planets.
Muhammad?
We don't know.
But I think...
When I hear, Nicky, when I hear people saying in this context, I hear people saying from these different traditions, yeah, of course we embrace science, we're all about science. I want to say it's science, Jim, but not as we know it. Right. This is not science.
Comments from the audience. Lady there, yeah.
I was going to ask Mark how it's really strange how he knows where Jesus came, which is way after Muhammad. Clearly he hasn't read the history where Muhammad comes from. So I would
Yeah, but
ask him,
George King came after both of them, who was the man who founded the Aetherius Society, who was contacted by the master Aetherius.
There's something, Nicky, about a degree
Good
of...
point.
A degree of speculation. Yeah, there's a degree of speculation here.
About all religions.
Well, of course there's part, but I think there are degrees, and I think, you know, it's worth being reticent, I think, about, you know, some of these philosophies and
not being judgmental as well about other religions.
Absolutely.
Sylvia, reincarnation as well is a...
Oh, yes, it's part of our beliefs. And reincarnation is a law of progress, that we have lessons to learn. We don't believe in punishment. People will not... In Spiritism, we believe that we don't going to be reincarnated as an animal, as a punishment. We don't believe that happens because we've already achieved a higher level. We are going to come back as human beings responsible for what we've done. And reincarnation is to learn lessons that we've done, readdress wrongs in our pathway to enlightenment.
Which is absolutely in line with what millions and millions of people on the planet believe in Eastern religions, isn't it? Alec, you're looking very pensive.
I was wondering whether Prevent would get involved in this, if our children believe this. Slightly flippantly, sorry.
That's fine.
Children sometimes they have a lot of, when you're young, you know, so I'm playing with my mother or my children or my cousin. Children see spirits, or they even remember their lives. May I just finish, please? They have memories, but what you normally, when they say, oh, you know, I died and I was drowned, like a friend of mine, her daughter told her, oh, I drowned Mummy in my other life. And then she was, oh, no, there isn't such a thing. There isn't such a thing. So, you know, as you grow, you stop the connection. But little children, they tell you, they see people all the time.
Liz, I want to bring Liz in if I may.
I just think that in all of this, yes, there are some things that we're not going to know until the end of time, and that's fine. But whatever decision you make should be based on evidence. So I would encourage everybody just to look at the evidence. Because Jesus said that it was there, and because I believe in who Jesus claimed to be.
George King said that he'd spoken to Master Aetherius,
because
the Master of Infinite
agree.
Eternal
There
Wisdom.
are no historians worth their salt who don't think that Jesus existed. So basically what comes down to is who Jesus was and who he claimed to be. And so I do believe that the evidence is strongest that he was the Son of God, and therefore I listen to what he says on the teachings.
But Muhammad said he wasn't, and he came later on. And he's in the light of history.
And I would encourage everyone to look at the evidence and make their own mind up.
So when you talk about children, you talk about children having experiences, they absolutely do. There's excellent neuropsychological evidence, research that shows that children are hardwired. We're hardwired to make sense. We're hardwired to join the dots. And
we're pattern-seeking mammals.
And when you're little and you have very little environmental information, you join the dots, and children believe in magic, they believe in supernatural, they believe in external influences. Until they grow up and learn how the world works, they learn from science and education that actually magic isn't a thing.
We didn't have a proper chance to discuss reincarnation because time is out. Thank you all very much.